Hey friends, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to take a look at something pretty cool. We're going to use Finale and Dorico to make some music, and then we're going to import it into a really cool metronome system called DropSpin. So DropSpin is a really cool metronome system. It's completely digital and it'll even work with your phone and sync with your computer. I've used something similar to this in my past when I was a drumline instructor, and we had these metronomes. This is way back in the day, let me tell you. But we had these metronomes that could sync to each other. And so I would have one, and then the captain, the snare lead, would have one, and that way they could hear it next to them. And so I could change, whether we were going to 3/4, 4/4, whatever. And I could even program some things into it very simply. And then they would have it when they were out on the field. So it was really useful, especially in rehearsal, but it was kind of limited. Now we're like a decade away from that, and there's some really cool technology. And this is an amazing metronome system that you can use for practice, for rehearsal with an ensemble. I think there's a lot of different ways it can be used, which is why I'm excited to be making this video in partnership with DropSpin. So in the app, you can see there's a lot of different things, and we're going to take a look at it all, but it's a great looking metronome. It's easy to use, and it's easy to sync with a computer and do really complex counting. And so this is more similar to something like what a Dr. Beat would do, but we're able to go even further, and we can set up a whole special metronome system to rehearse for an entire piece. So we're going to look at a few different things that we can do. And first, let's talk about exporting from Finale. So I wrote this piece for the Loyola University Chicago Drumline back when I was the founding drumline director long ago. Looks like back in 2014. And this piece, Polar Vortex, was always one of our favorites. And we're going to go ahead and use this as an example. But as we've talked about on this channel, Finale is sunsetting, and we're not going to be able to use it with an updated system. We've already seen how quickly Mac updated, and Sequoia is not supported with Finale. So if you're moving from Finale to Dorico, this is especially important. But so we're going to take this Cadence here, and let's go ahead and export an XML. We're going to go to File, Export, and export a MusicXML. And this is where we're going to put it right back with all the rest of my stuff. You can see I've actually already even done that. But let's save a new one. Now, if you're concerned because you have a million Finale files, MusX files, .musx, and you need to turn those into XML files or MusicXML files, I show in a video how you can do a batch export of all the files within a folder and turn those from MusX files into MusicXML. So if you need help with that, go ahead and check out that video. And now that we have this XML file of our Polar Vortex, the Cadence, let's go ahead and import that into Dorico just so we can see what we can work with. So I'm running Dorico 5, and let's go ahead and import a new file. So we're going to import, and this is where my XML is, Polar Vortex. And let's just go ahead and open it. All right, so here we are. Now, I've not done anything in advance of this video. We're doing it all live, and you can see this looks kind of ugly. Let's make some fixes here. So the first thing, we have these collisions, and that's just because our systems, our staves, are a little bit too big. So let's change that. Let's go to Library, Layout Options. And right now we can see that our size for our staff, it's 6.5 millimeters. Let's change this to 5.5 right now. We're impacting our full score layout, not any of the parts. And let's just go ahead and hit Apply. And you can see here in the background, everything's adjusted. Let me scroll out here. And now we're fitting a little bit better with fewer collisions. And now you see these frame breaks, system breaks. These are signposts, and they're little flags that can kind of guide you in what's going on in the engraving of the piece. Now I want this measure to be over here, so we have 3 measures in this system. But right now this has a frame break. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this measure, and I'm going to set the frame break here. So create frame break, and you can see we now have 2 frame breaks, one in measure 19 and one in measure 18. So now that we want this measure to go back into this system, let's go ahead and select this frame break and delete it. And you can see that's now joined over here, and we have all of those together. Up here, we now have one measure in this system. So let's go ahead and move these around. So I'm going to go ahead and select this measure, and it's going to move this and this up here if I go over here and click Move to Previous System. And now we've got it. We've got 3 measures per system. There's a variety of ways you could solve this. You could also have gone into layout options and set a global parameter allowing for 3 measures or 3 bars per system. You could have done that, or you could have manually moved things around like this. So looking at my score here, this looks a little different than Finale. Let's pull up Finale real quick. And you can see my tenor line here, it looks more like one instrument. I'm not having these extra rests. But for some reason, in Dorico, we're getting all these extra rests. Well, let's go ahead and go to write mode, and let's check out what's going on. We're going to go to View, and now we want Note and Rest colors, and let's check out voice colors. Voice colors are similar to layers in Finale. So if you have multiple voices, it's like having multiple layers, and they're going to show as different colors. So here we can see we have multiple voices or layers happening in this section right here. So we don't want that. We want all of this to be part of one voice so that it makes more sense for the individual player. So what some people may do, they'll grab the select tool and then they'll select here at the beginning of the measure and then scroll over to the end, hold shift and then select again. We're going to do something a little bit easier. So let's go up here and change our layout. Right now we're looking at the full score. Let's click here and go to our tenor line. I'm going to scroll out here and you can see that here in the tenor line we have lots of different things going on because of our multiple voices. I'm going to select all, Control A, and what we're going to do is right click and we're going to go to percussion because this is a percussion instrument. And we're going to change voice, and we're going to change this to up stem voice 1. And now it's moved all of our notes, all of our rests into one voice. Let's go back to our score. And you can see it's all cleaned up in the score too. Now in the bass line here, we have a similar issue. So let's go change from our full score to our bass. And let's go ahead and select all. Right click, and then we're going to go to percussion, change voices, and again, let's go to up stem voice 1. And right here, we've got it all in one voice. This looks good. So here, we want to clean this up a little bit, just to make it easier for us to show some things in DropSpin. So I'm going to add some rehearsal markers. And you know, sometimes these flags are in the way. So if you need to move them, go to View, Signposts, and then Hide Signposts. So let's go ahead and add a rehearsal marker here. And to do that, I'm going to go Shift plus A. And here at the beginning, let's add another one. This is rehearsal A, Shift plus A, and it's automatically updated this to A and this to B. All right, so the next one, let's go ahead here and measure 10, Shift A, and you know what? I think I want this ending, Shift A, and this is going to have a nice spot too. So we now have a few different rehearsal letters. That way we can stay organized. There's all sorts of other things that if you needed to hide, you could do. If you're working in Dorico, check out my Dorico tutorial series where I show all sorts of little things that you can do to clean up your score and work with Dorico. Great, so we have a nice piece here and we're going to export this to bring it into DropSpin. So let's go ahead and File, Export, Export MusicXML. And here's where we get a choice. So we can export the number of flows we have, which we only have one, and we could export layouts as separate files. We don't really need to do that right now, so I'm going to uncheck this. So now we can decide where we want to export this to, and I'm going to go ahead and drop this on my desktop just for ease of what we're doing right now. And if you have this checked, it will create a new folder for this file. Now let's go ahead and hit OK, and we've gotten it exported. So our next step is to jump into DropSpin, which is a website. So let's go over there, and then we'll bring in the file. So here I am logged into DropSpin, and I'm going to go ahead and upload a new score. Now I could drag and drop it, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to click here to select, and I'm going to go to desktop, and here we go. This is my flows from Polar Vortex, and this is the XML that I exported. So I'm going to bring that in, and we can see that's the file. So let's give this a name, Polar Vortex. And the description, this is Drumline Cadence. So we're going to have to add this to a collection, but I don't have any yet. So let's start a new one. And this is going to be Loyola University Chicago Drumline Cadences. And if you needed another description, you could throw that here. Let's go ahead and submit. So here we are. Our library is now showing, and we see our collection. And if we had other collections, they would also be here. So let's view this collection. And here we have Polar Vortex. So let's check out the score. All right, so I'm just going to pull up what we had before. This is Dorico. We have 5 measures at the beginning. And then from Rehearsal B, we have 4 measures. C, we have 9 measures as I scroll over here. And then D, we have 6 measures. So that's all that we should be seeing. And for this piece, because it's easy, it's all in 4/4. So taking a look here, we have section A, and let's go ahead and show what we have. We have our 5 measures, just like we thought. We could hit this plus here and see B. And now we have that, the 4 measures. This is the second time. Now check this out. B is repeated. If we look here in Dorico, that is correct. It is showing this repeat. Now I accidentally didn't have a repeat symbol at the beginning. So it's not showing to repeat A. So if I wanted to do that, I'd have to add that in. But the cool thing is all this stuff has been added in. It's got the right number of measures, and it's nice and organized. But let's see what this looks like in real life. So we're going to launch the DropSpin player. This is the DropSpin player, and I'm showing it here on the desktop as opposed to showing it on my phone because it's just a little easier to see, but it would look the same. Up here we have the accent. So if this is 4 beats, you could have the accent on, all 4 beats. You could have quarter note, eighth notes, you could have 16th notes, and you could have triplets, right? So this is just a general metronome. Let's add some eighth notes. Let's add some 16th notes. And these are adding the E and the of one E and a. So if we want the eighth notes, let's click here. And let's add some triplets. Just to begin with, this is a great metronome. Super easy to use. You can set up some complex rhythms like a doctor beat, and you can go from there. But we're going to import what we just did with Polar Vortex. So over here on the left-hand side, we're going to go to our collections and Polar Vortex. Let's click that, and here we go. We can see it. So let's just go ahead and start. See what we got. And we got a nice count in. And it's showing us which measures it's playing. And it went right into the second time. Perhaps we want this to go a little bit faster. Let's just hit this +10, speed us up here. And what we actually want to do is now start from Rehearsal C. So we're going to click this start over here. There's our count off. And now we're starting in Rehearsal C. So perhaps we want to change this count in. Let's go ahead and click over here. And this section right here, count in, let's change this to something fun. So I'm going to do kind of an old classic. We're going to do eighth notes, and then we'll do some 16th notes. And then how about a triplet here at the end? Once we have that set, we can go ahead and go back. If we wanted to change the number of beats, we could do that here. And if you wanted to change what it does in between a loop, you could change that here. So let's go ahead and try this out. And this time we're going to start from D the first time. This is our count in. And you can see it's playing through. So as you can see, this is a really powerful metronome, and it's just going right through our piece that we made in Dorico, and it's reading it all. But let's make a piece that's a little bit more complicated in Dorico. That way we can really see the strengths of DropSpin. So let's go back into Dorico. Let's go ahead and start a new piece here. File, new. And we're going to start a whole new drumline cadence. So let's go ahead and add a single player here, and I need a snare drum. We'll do a marching snare drum. And we have the single line snare drum here. I'm going to go ahead and make this easier to see. Let's add some new drums. Let's add the bass drums. Bass. And if we go down here, we want marching bass drums, and I want the full set, so I'm going to select this one. And we have the full 5-line staff. Let's go ahead and add some tenor drums. I'm going to type drum here. And we have marching tenor drums. We'll add these. And let's add a cymbal line. And I want marching cymbals. And let's also do them as a single line. Now you can see I actually started this not in order. I searched for snare, and then I searched for bass, and then I searched for tenors. But Dorico is pretty smart, and it set it into a better order. In fact, one might argue a proper order. All right, so let's go to write mode, and let's work on this. So I want to change the name of this whole piece here. Let's go into File, Project Info. And right now we can see we're currently called Untitled Project 3, but we're going to call this Spin the Drop after the software that we're working with. All right, let's hit apply, and you can see it's changed the information up here. But 1.flow1 is still there. That's because that's the name of the flow. Now we could get rid of that if we want, or right down here we could type in, this is a drumline cadence. You'll see how we can deal with this more in a second. Let's go ahead and hit apply, and it's changed that there. Let's go back to project, and let's add in our composer. I am Tim Corpus, and hit apply, and that's in there too. And now we want to add something at the bottom here for the copyright. In fact, we want to say, don't forget to subscribe. Let's go ahead and hit apply. Close this. We don't have anything here. Why not? Let's go to engrave mode, where we can impact and deal with text frames. So this text frame right here, let's use this button on the side here that's for frames. And if we double click in here, we can see this is what's showing. These are wildcards. And as we input things in project info, they'll show up here so that we don't have to type things multiple times. So if we don't want this to be seen, we could just select this whole thing and delete it. Over here, we have a box, and we could have put a project lyricist, but we didn't put anything in. So we could select this and delete that as well. Let's scroll to the bottom, and let's check out what's going on here. So we double click project copyright. So this is where the wildcard would show. So nothing's showing right now. Let's go to File, Info, And we can see I put this in copyist because I don't know how to read. So I'm going to cut this, and go out of copyright, paste this, apply, close, and now you can see it's at the bottom of our piece where we would have the copyright. All right, enough fun. Let's go to write mode and let's put a piece together. So we're going to start this piece off in 4/4. So I'm going to select here, Shift plus M, and now I get the meter box, and let's go 4/4. We need some more measures here. So there's a few things I could do. I'm going to go over here on the right to bars and bar lines, and I'm going to insert bars, and they're going to go at the end of flow. So let's go ahead and add 4 measures. Insert bar, and now we have 4 more 4/4 bars. So let's make something fun here. Let's select this measure. We're going to go ahead and Shift plus M, and then we'll make this 3/4. Let's select this next measure. And another way we can change the time signature is to go over here on the right-hand side, select this 3/4, and you have all these other options. So perhaps we want a 2/4 measure, and then we select the next one, and let's go to a 5/8 measure. And then let's go back to 4/4. And you can see each time it's changing the number of measures because it's going by the number of beats or counts there are. So this last one, if I go 5/4, you can see it absorbed some of the later measure. Another way we could add a measure, let's select here, and now we're going to go Shift plus B for bars, and now +1. And it's going to insert this as well. Let's change this last one, Shift M to 4/4. And again, you can see it's added that measure. If we don't want this extra space, there's a few things we could do. We could select this, which is our system track, and we could delete that measure, and now we're all set. So we're setting up a grid here for DropSpin for us to practice to. So we need a tempo. Let's go ahead and here, click on our first measure, and we're going to go Shift plus T. And now let's start the piece off with a nice Q for quarter note equals 72. So right here at the beginning, we are going at quarter note equals 72. After this 2/2 measure, 2/4 measure, let's jump to faster. So in this 5/8 measure, let's select this, and we're going to go Shift plus T, and then Q equals 120. So now we're going to go much faster. And at the end here, I think we should have a little bit of a Ritardando. So let's select this measure, and we're going to go Shift plus T again, and let's type RIT, and you can see it's an option in this dropdown. Select that, and we already have that. And I want this to end a little bit earlier, so I'm going to click that and drag that into my 5/4 measure. So this is what we've set up. If we wanted to add in music, we could. Let's go into the snare drum, double click in here, and I'm going to type from my number pad. I'm going to hit, for me, number 4, which is an 8th note for me, and I'm going to hit the letter E on my typing keyboard, and you can see I've entered a note. Now if I switch to 16th note and then type E again, you can see I'm just able to add notes pretty quickly, which is great. And for all of these, all I'm hitting is the letter E. And that's it. Pretty simple. And now we can escape from that, and we have this little bit of a piece. So we need to add some rehearsal marks so we know where to start from. So let's go ahead and select the beginning here and Shift A. And then right before the Ritardando, or right at it, we should also have a rehearsal mark. So let's hit here, Shift plus A. But now that I think about it, we should probably have one at the time change here. So let's select here, Shift plus A. And just like before, it changes it from being the proper order for the letters. And if you wanted rehearsal numbers instead of letters or measure numbers, you can change all of that in your settings. You can also change whether it's a square or a circle or however you want to show the rehearsal numbers. So this is great. We have a piece here. Let's go ahead and export this as an XML and load it into DropSpin. All right, let's go ahead and export here. So File, Export, MusicXML. And in DropSpin, you want to send an uncompressed XML because this has all the information that we need. Although an XML file is smaller, for DropSpin, a MusicXML is what's carrying over all the information that'll set up the metronome. So we have our spot selected to export, and let's go ahead and hit OK. And it's exported. Here in DropSpin, let's go ahead and add our file and desktop. And this is what we're looking for, flows from the spin drop. Double click this and it's added it in. And let's call this spin the drop. And we're going to add that to the same collection that we had before, Loyola University Chicago Drumline Cadences. Let's go ahead and submit. Now, if we view our collection, we can see what's going on here. But before we jump into this, let's go up here to our player. And let's go ahead and refresh and check out what's going on in our collections, because automatically it's sent to this collection and I can access it. Now in DropSpin, you can set up a variety of different members and groups. So let's say you had a full drum line. You have 8 snare drummers, you have 3 quad players or tenor players, and you have 6 bass drummers. So you could set those all up as one group, and maybe you want to send all sorts of information to them, but then perhaps your snare tech has some rehearsal materials for them that they want to use, so they could send them to just a subset of that group, just the snare line. This is really amazing for teachers and keeping everything organized. And we'll take a look at a little bit more of that later, but there's a lot of videos on DropSpin's website about how you can set up those groups. So we have our A section, our B section, our C section, and let's open Dorico real quick. So in this first section, we have a 4/4, a 3/4, and a 2/4 measure. So let's see what DropSpin did. Let's hit start. And it's automatically giving us a count in at 72. And there's our first 4/4, our 3/4, and our 2/4 measure. And then it did the speed up automatically. And there it goes. Now I want to hear that Ritardando again. So let's start from C, and we'll do that here. Click start, and let's hear that again. Now here in Dorico, I forgot to say what we were slowing down to. If this was live players, that's, sometimes not necessarily an issue because we can interpret it if there's a conductor. But for the metronome, we need to know what we're going to change to. But you don't have to change everything in Dorico and then re-upload. We could change that just in DropSpin. So we're back in the user account here, and let's view score for spin the drop. Now we're talking about changing the ending here. Let's open up C, and we have our 5 beats. It's going 120 to 120, and then our ending is 120. We need to change this so that the slowdown makes a little bit more sense. So let's click in here, and our end tempo, let's go down to 72 again, just like the beginning. So it starts in measure 6, and at the end, it's going to go to 72. And I'm going to make sure that the end here is also at 72 in that next measure. So we're all set. Let's go ahead and check out these as well. Open this up, and you can see here's the grids for each measure. If we were to select this, you can see we have, just like before, our options with quarter notes, eighth notes, 16th notes, and triplets. So perhaps in this measure, we want to hear all triplets. So let's turn on triplets. And in our 3/4 measure, we want to hear eighth notes. Why not? And then in our 2/4, let's change 16th notes. And we're also going to turn these on to make sure that we have that first beat. Now another way to look at this would actually be in the mass edit area. Click over here, and it hides all the other information, and we can just impact and deal with the grid system for each measure. So this is another thing you can think about if you want to edit something for the whole score or for specific measures. So let's go ahead and save where we're at. And now we're going to go back into our player. Let's refresh. And now let's go ahead and load our collection, spin the drop. So let's hear it. There's our count off. We have triplets, our 8th notes, 16th notes, and did you hear that? The metronome properly calculated the ritardando for our players. So in the metronome, it did a full slowdown for that entire measure, that 5/4 measure, which is incredible. So if you have to have all of your drummers or all of your band members preparing for different tempo changes, this is a great way to do it, and they can all hear how much should they slow down. And you can set that up for them in advance, and everyone should be thinking the same way. Also, just as a player who's rehearsing and practicing by myself, this is amazing. You can really practice your graduated accel or ritardando. Here in the player, let's go ahead and play with some of these things. So in the mixer, if we want to change how loud the accent is, we could do that. We could change how loud the quarter notes, 8th notes, 16th notes, or triplets are, just like in a Dr. beat. We could also do something funky here and skip beats. So perhaps 50% of the time, it's skipping beats and it's not playing them. This is just kind of a game way to test yourself. While the pulse is remaining the same, it's hiding the metronome from you. Let's go back here and hear it. And this time we're going to hear it from Rehearsal B. There's our count in. So it's super funky, and you could hear that 50% of those beats were hidden. And that's pretty tricky way, but hey, if you want to find a fun way to practice, there you go. Let's go ahead and turn that off real quick. Head back here, and I want to spice up my count in. So I'm going to change this up, and like I did before, let's add one of these, and then a 16th note, and then a triplet, because I think that always sounds fun at the end. And for our loop in between, we'll keep it the same way. But I like to have a triplet here at the end just to hear it. So let's go ahead and head back. And I want to loop this whole thing. So we're going to start at Rehearsal A, and I'm going to turn on the loop button here. So let's start with our count in. And this is our loop. And it's just going to go on like that. As a player, I'm sure you've experienced how you want to loop measures over and over at a really slow tempo so that you can get the feel for it and then speed it up. That's another thing you could do in this. Perhaps you want to build your own practice session and you want it to go up gradually. Something I used to do was run maybe a section of 4 measures, and then if I got it right on the Dr. beat, I'd then add 1, and then I'd go up a level, and if I missed it, I'd go down 1. And this was just part of a practice cycle. But if you wanted to build something in, you could do that. And you could build something where it's 4 measures, and then the next count, you in DropSpin, add the tempo and increase the tempo as you go. And this way you don't have to actually touch the metronome and turn it up. You can have it programmed in for you, and perhaps you start at BPM 60 and you go up to 120. You can have that all set up, and each time go up a level and then you're kind of saving yourself in your practice. So like I was saying before, you can manage groups here in DropSpin for all those different players. You can even get rehearsal analytics. So how often are they actually practicing, and how are they doing in their practicing? Was the assignment to go from 60 BPM to 100 BPM over a few weeks? And you can see how they were doing in that. Check out the member resources because that'll show you a lot more about dealing with all of that. So as you can see, we know how to export an XML file from Finale, and we can also do one from Dorico. And it's important that you're using the MusicXML format because that has all of the information that DropSpin needs to make the metronome work for you. So once you have your cadence prepared, you can export that and then load it into DropSpin and get to practicing. This is an amazing software, and I really wish I would have had something like this 20 years ago when I was spending so much time in a practice room with me versus that tiny little blue metronome. You remember that little one? And DropSpin isn't playing your music for you right now. So if all you want to do is take the paper sheet music that you have, you could go into DropSpin and just build the measures. Or you could go into Dorico and just build the measures. You don't necessarily have to input all of the information, all of the cross-sticking notes, and all of the parts that you're not playing. If you just need the architecture, this is a great way to set that practice setup for you. So special thanks to my friends at DropSpin for, first of all, making such an amazing program. I will definitely be using this. And I also think this is a great thing for you, which is why I wanted to talk about it here. So thanks for checking out this video. Be sure to like it, and you can also take care of the channel too by becoming a member. Members support the channel, and you can support all the work that we're doing here to hopefully make your life as a musician a little bit easier. If you have questions about Dorico or Finale, subscribe to the channel and check out all of the different tutorials that I've put together to hopefully, again, make your life a little bit easier. All right, so that's that. Go ahead, get your files ready in Dorico, export those, load them into DropSpin, and get practicing.